Hi, so I want to make a video talking about Mary Magdalene, who I possibly think could be represented as a Wonder Woman, and I'm going to talk about why. So please bear in mind, this is just my opinion. These are just like connections that I've made, so take of it as what you will. However, I do find this so interesting because I have really been researching about Rachel in the Bible recently, and the connections I've been making with Rachel, how she is actually the Holy Spirit. And I've already wondered if Mary Magdalene is Rachel. However, combining what I know about Rachel and what we are starting to learn and know about Mary Magdalene, I see the full picture within Wonder Woman, potentially. So yeah, let me get to talking about it and let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so the very first thing, very first connection I made was Wonder Woman. So if you turn the two W's the other way around, you get MM, which we all now know is significant for Mary Magdalene. So I found that straight away, that connection. The second thing I absolutely loved this is the spirit of truth is so strong within Diana. In the second film, she gives literally like a 5-minute speech where she's just talking about how important the truth is and how beautiful the world was, the way it was, and all that there is the truth. But I just found that absolutely stunning. And again, within Mary Magdalene and Christ, it's all about the truth. Like, we are to learn the truth, the spirit of truth. When I was deep diving Joseph and Asenath, Joseph gives Asenath the spirit of truth, and it's very significant within their story. And I've made connections with Joseph. Joseph is Rachel's son in the Bible. And yeah, honestly, absolutely mind-blowing, but it's so significant with Diana. And where she comes from, the Amazons, is very strong with them as well. The spirit of truth. We must be truthful. What I loved about this as well is that she actually uses the lasso of truth to propel herself forward to help her fly. I'll come back to that in a minute. But she can also use the lasso of truth to make people tell the truth and also to show them the truth. So the spirit of truth is very, very prominent within the Wonder Woman film. And obviously, we all know it's very prominent within the talks and the scriptures of Christ and Mary Magdalene. I found that very, very beautiful, if I'm being honest. I loved that. This blew my mind. All of it blew my mind. But this was like, how did I not pick up on this before? So Steve, now I'm just going to, like, as a representation of Christ, I'm not saying he is Christ or anything like that, but if you were to look at the bigger picture as like Wonder Woman as a representation of, Steve would be Christ, Mary Magdalene would be Diana. And what I love about this is that in the very first film, so Steve, he sacrifices himself to save others, which is, you know, what more of a hero can we have than someone who literally sacrifices himself to save other people? But in the second film, he is resurrected, and I didn't pick up on these like before. I'm so daft. He comes back in a different body, but it's still his spirit, his soul, and Diana still recognizes it as Steve, and she even says to him, "I only see you," meaning she only sees Steve. But he's actually resurrected. This is like the sad side of it. So she has to deal with him dying essentially twice. While she stays, Steve doesn't have to deal with Diana dying or Diana leaving, but Mary Magdalene, aka Diana, has to deal with Steve, Christ, which is very significant within the Mary Magdalene community and stuff. Like, she's had to stay behind, heartbroken. Christ is gone, he's resurrected, but then he's gone again, and it's very hard for her. Like, she deals with a lot of sorrow and a lot of pain, and that's exactly what Diana is dealing with in Wonder Woman. But I absolutely love this. He tells Diana in the very first film that he can save today, but she can save the world. So he sacrifices himself to save people, but she stays so she can save the world. And I absolutely loved that. And so, yeah, so she stays, but she has to constantly deal with Steve leaving, Steve dying. And because of that, she's actually very lonely. So Wonder Woman is lonely. So you see in the second film that she eats alone. There's a scene where she's like laid in bed and she's lonely, and you can see she's cut up. Not only that, it's been decades since Steve died, and yet she has not moved on. She will not love anybody else. She will not even think of anybody else. She doesn't even let it cross her mind to be with anyone else. She only wants Steve, her first love, her true love. And because she's so, spirit of the truth is so strong within Diana, that is her truth. And it's not like today, like this throwaway system where people are getting married and divorced 50 times in a lifetime. Like she's loyal to Steve. Even when he dies and then he comes back and then he dies again, she's still loyal to him. And she even says, I will never love anybody else. So it's beautiful and it's romantic. It's so sad and lonely for her at the same time. And this is another connection I've been making with Rachel. So in the Bible, Rachel is in exile. She chooses to stay with her children. And I think something really bad happened in the past. But this is kind of what happened with Diana as well. So Diana is actually a god. Again, this links back in with what I think is going on with Rachel. She's a daughter of Zeus, and she's brought up by the Amazons. Now, they're an island of just women. They're incredibly strong. The truth is very important to them. But they're actually meant to be there to protect humans. That's kind of what they're there for. So when Diana hears about the Great World War, she leaves there to go help the children. Now, bear in mind, she's a god, so these are kind of essential like her children. What is interesting is after she helps and kills Ares in the first film, she actually stays with the children. She doesn't go back to the Amazons, which I find very, very, very mind-blowing, because that's just like Rachel. Like, she's in exile because she refuses to leave her children. And if you go back and watch my other videos on Rachel, I believe she is God in physical form on earth. She's the Ruach Elohim, the Holy Spirit, just like Diana would be a representation of that in Wonder Woman. But I still think Rachel could possibly be Mary Magdalene. So it all links in together. Like, it's mind-blowing. Not only that, the Ruach Elohim. So the Ruach El. So in the Old Testament, the Ruach El is what they call the Holy Spirit, and it's mentioned over 400 times in the Old Testament, and they simplified that to just the Holy Spirit in the New Testament. However, the Ruach El is a spirit that flew over the waters or hovered over the waters. That's mentioned in Genesis verse 1-2, which is Rachel. And what does Wonder Woman learn to do? She learns to fly. She's flying, and she uses the lasso of truth to propel herself forward. She attaches it to a plane the very first time, which I feel like is her connecting with Steve, the pilot, in one sense. But then she lets go of that, and she just uses the lasso of truth to propel herself forward, and then she teaches herself to fly. She's flying just like the Ruach Elohim. And also, in the film, Diana says she looks to the sky. A friend is asking her about Steve, and she says he died, but she says, I still look to the sky and I feel like I can still see him. Now, obviously, she's referencing to the fact that he's a pilot, but I hear something completely different. And there's a scene where she's literally just stood up looking at the sky, and I just find it so absolutely mind-blowing. I feel like she is a real representation of Mary Magdalene and Rachel. I don't know how I feel about the name Diana overall, and the father being Zeus. I feel like that would have been Abba. However, this is just my take on it all. What do you think?